Hi, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. We're going to get started here. Let's try to take my deal off. Hi, everyone. I'm going to start off. Give me a few seconds here. And let me just go with our intro for a second. Give me a few seconds. So, having a little bit of connection, trying to get us on Instagram, all of that. How's everyone? Is everyone excited about today? Hold up. Hi, Instagram. Sorry, guys. This has been a challenge to try to do multiple devices at once. Y'all, look, we've had some challenges, and I just want to make sure that we are impact. Oh, man. Here. So, welcome to day three of our pain free co parenting series. I am Tanisha Manning. I am the CEO of Confident Women's Alliance, where we help divorced moms who survive breast cancer break free from suffering from you can't breathe to get to the point where you can sleep, breathe, and have as much energy as you need. So let's just get started. So today we're gonna talk about parenting with our children. Guys, come on in with our children that when they're going through something, when we are actually going through a divorce. So a little bit of my story in terms of I always start this out. So I'll go over my story, then I'll give some points where the first point that I want to talk about is our, let me get back to my notes, is identity, priority, identity, and mentality. So those are just three things that I'm going to cover. Before I get to that, let me know if you're ready. Let me know that. Drop an emoji. If you're at ground zero, I want to hear zero. If you're working and you have improvement, go with the number one in the chat. So we'll have some interactions in terms of everything. So I really, 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 really appreciate your time tonight on day 3. So again, why I really, really am focusing on childhood trauma and what that does to the body and how it breaks down the cells in the body and pretty much break down your immune system that can lead to potentially chronic illnesses. And so I've covered the things that in the beginning, the shocking um, things that you may not know about, the fact that a divorce is a traumatic event, any type of breakup is, depending on what the dynamics are, and especially adding that to children with coupling that with children, it's a really, really tough time. So I am here. I am the coach to help you get there. The promise that I say is that you will get through what you're going through. There is no issues going on with that. You will get through. I said no issues, but there will be issues, but you will get through it. So with that, I will start with a lot of the internal desires that I was going through when I pretty much went through a divorce and everything. And what I wanted so much was that I believed that I wanted my family to be together. I did not want a divorce. You don't want that to happen. I really didn't want my children to be a statistic. I had learned or heard about like single moms and all these different percentages based on some surveys that are small percentages, by the way, that actually say that you um, that your children will potentially something will happen. They're prone to drop out of school. They're prone to go to drugs and all these different things that I just did not have. I wanted that in my life internally. And so externally, I also wanted my children to be accepted, loved. I wanted them to be wanted, free, and have great jobs and not struggle the way I did. And so what I did was I was really, really exhausted. I was really, really busy. What I talked about yesterday was that for the most part, when you're trying to communicate with a man, or with a parent that may not be cooperative or may not talk to you or whatever the case may be. And I gave some pointers on them being foolish and unfortunately ways to navigate through that. And so one of the things in having that in my mindset, I did not know that all these things that I was doing was just really just not me, not connecting and not being around my children, not necessarily being around my children, but not really connecting with my body. So I tried, they were in sports, they were in basketball and volleyball. I had them in church. I also focused, one of the things that I noticed that when we've gone through things and we know that our children, and we're very concerned about our kids a lot, I always give this analogy that you hear the stewardess and they basically say, if those of us that have flown on um, airplanes and you have actually seen them say, hey, um, you know, before, if the cabin loses pressure, you if the you are supposed to, the mask is going to come down, and that you will need to put the mask on you first before you put the mask on your child. Well, for the most part, we don't live our lives like that. And so how are we going to pretty much connect if we are doing that? So putting the mask on us would be really something that we probably won't do. We will put our children first no matter what. But also in certain situations, it also sends signals to our children, and so like I talked about um, in a few days before about the fact that you have children that are, I want to say, they may be acting out or whatever the case may be, and you're concerned about them. So what happens is we'll put them in counseling and then we won't go to counseling. And we have this stigma, like I said before, about what we would call mental illness. And I really want to transcend and make, mindset difference of the fact that um, we would need to call that a traumatic brain injury. So if it's an injury, it's also an injury not just to our children, but also to us. So if your child is going through this, a lot of times we typically put our children in counseling and we won't. And so, with the society believing that it's now mental illness, they'll be thinking that it's something wrong with them, or they don't feel like there's anything wrong with them. So they're just going to have these conversations, but they don't know the reason why they're having these conversations. So one of the things that I was actually in that, I used that. I was like, well, look, I'm going to make sure that one of my children was in counseling, or one, depending on what they were doing, and then not even focusing on what I needed to do. And then I got into situationships or relationships because maybe I thought that that was something that I needed, a relationship. I'm thinking in my mind, I was preached, and you're learning about what a husband is and what marriage is. And so if you've gone through a failed divorce or whatever, you start to look at, okay, what I did wrong, what the other person did wrong. And then there's this deep desire to try to have this redo, do it all over again. And so you start to focus on that as well. And I really didn't I really didn't like focus on strongly healing myself and allowing that time to really, really, take root and really, really deal with it. So what I did was I was volunteering, um, because at some point I felt like I was actually working to get my life, or I was working to um, I was working and working and working to get some form of value or some form of love from God. And that's really the dangerous thing about religion. I believe I was just in a chat about this umbrella that I see, this umbrella, like a hierarchy or a tier, and they have Jesus at the top, and then the husband under it, and then the wife under it, and then the children under the wife. And so this hierarchy thing. But then what was really interesting about this picture was that the umbrella with Jesus, there was nothing under it, like nothing, absolutely anything. And under the husband, it was a lot of duties where it was, well, three: provider, protector, and something else, leading. And then the wife is the nurturer and the teacher, and then the children obey the parents, this. Nothing up, nothing under Jesus was, like everyone, do what he has called you to do. And so going with this part of understanding me serving and serving and serving and giving my life over, I really was working. And I believe just knowing and understanding that there is nothing that you could do. Your work is nothing to God, and really the salvation is all the work that is needed. And He doesn't need any of my work. So, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know while I was serving, my children, while I'm at church, majority of the time, my children are around other believers or Christians at church, and they're seeing things that are not healthy with the individuals that are at church. Now, this is probably not an issue or a problem or anything. And I know that sometimes those of us that have raised our children in church, and then by the time they're older, you're trying to figure out, well, why they won't go back. And I did not know that I was just really, really drowning myself into serving because I really got to wash these sins away, all these things. And I really did not I didn't really understand my identity in Christ. For the most part, we tend to, we tend to think about all the wrong that we are doing, all the wrong that we are to do, or we excuse me, we focus on not being arrogant, we focus on not being selfish, we focus on um the just the sin, not being sinful, not being arrogant, not being whatever, right? You think about all of that, but you forget to be you. You forget to discover who you are. And so that's some of the things that I did not do. I was not really focusing on the real thing that I needed to do. My first ministry is my children. And one of the greatest things in the Bible, it talks about that we are to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And so I did not know really, truly what that really meant. I didn't really know how to love myself. So then how am I going to love others? And first, I mean, if I'm hearing about being selfish and put others first, hello. I did not understand that I am to love myself so much so that I have an overflow so they can love others. So I'm in this state of being dried out of love, and I'm just pouring and pouring and pouring, and my children are suffering, and I did not know that. So I'm like, why are my children suffering? And I didn't learn that until later. So this is one of the reasons why I am teaching it now, from one of the things that I'm having to repair with my children, mother wounds and all these different wounds, especially religious wounds, in terms of you not actually being yourself. You're trying to, please. You're trying to not be selfish. You're trying all of these things. And I believe one pastor, Pastor Darius Daniels, called it religious trauma. We are so focused on not being someone that instead of focusing on who we are. And it was interesting to listen to the fact that Jesus was a man and God, fully man, fully God. And so, but he was very confident of who who he was. And I like the fact that he was like, look, I am the way, the truth, and the light. No man comes to me. No one comes to the Father but through me. Is that a little bit of arrogance? That's a little bit of like, I am who I am. And that's why it's very valid. It's very, very important of how you speak about who you are to yourself, because the words I am is so, so very powerful. And so when I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow, I never really thought about the just looking at the total difference. Like the first day I talked about awareness. Awareness is so, so important. One of the things that I learned from one of my coaches, he said that the truth shall set you free. Any area in your life where you are not free, that means you lack truth. I'm gonna repeat that again. The truth shall set you free. Any area in your life where you lack freedom, that means that's an area where lacks truth. I think one of the things that I believe that school has done to us, it has programmed to make us believe that we have arrived, that graduation is like we go to school to graduate, right? I remember reading, and I'm in a couple of groups and providing value and giving value and letting people know and understand some things. And I saw one woman who wanted to go back to school, and I don't know, she's maybe 30, 40 years old or something like that. Hello, 30 something years old. And she's like, hey, um, I'm just, I need to go back to school, but I'm afraid to go back to school. Is it okay to go back to school at 40? And I'm sitting here like, we have been programmed that school ends, even college ends in the 20s or whatever. And it kind of psychologically, we kind of think that we really don't need to study anymore. And so, what does the Bible say? It says that we perish for lack of knowledge. That's where you find truth. You find truth in being a continual student in learning, relearning, and unlearning things that maybe that's in your imagination. I always talk about, we are very, I feel like my women, my Black women especially, we are always well in our headspace a lot. Um, and we're very smart, very tenacious, very everything. We're flawless, we're amazing, but we lack, due to so much trauma that has happened through our bloodlines. A lot of times we just struggle with connecting with what's going on in our bodies. And that is why I really, really am passionate about that today. So, again, if you guys are ready, drop an emoji if this has been good so far. Thank you guys for joining and coming in. Again, I am working with one family, and you have until tomorrow. I thought I had a application today, but that was for my podcast as well. So I'm taking people to be guests on my podcast as well. But if you are willing, if you would like to be a part of the Flawlessly Free 90-day program, the website has been dropped in the chat. Going on over, we're only going to have so many spots for you. And if you are ground zero on trying to figure out a plan for your children in this time, or if you have had a relationship, or you are in, or you processed it for a couple of years and you're still going through, I really, really want to empower you to understand the things that are going on. And so I started out today with a little bit of my story, internal desires, wanting fathers to still be there, this family unit of what I believed was the right thing or the right family. I didn't even consider myself and my child a family. And so I was serving and serving and serving, giving my time at church. And also, if I was so, because I said the same thing, I said, look, a lot of times as parents, we have this, mothers, I will say, some mothers, where we put our children above everything. And so I gave the analogy of the stewardess or the flight attendant on a flight that says to put the mask. If the cabin loses pressure, the mask goes on you before your child. You are not going to do that. You're likely going to put the mask on your child before you put it on you. And so I'm saying you are the priority. Whatever you do, your children mimic you. I mean, for real. I have two children, two daughters. They are age 26 and 22, and they are me. And so there were things that I even had to teach them to unlearn about as I have matured and learned some things. So your children will become you. So that's why I believe in handling and maintaining any type of traumas that you have, processing it and making yourself a priority, learning about what you desire, dreaming again, doing the things that you once knew. That actually teaches your child more than you realize. And so one of the things I talked about is that when they're at church, y'all, I'm going to tell you, you also have to be careful about who they are with church. And then there's only so much time that I'm not saying that this is not a bash against church. I just think that at some point I was there too much, and then nobody told me to go home and tell me that my first ministry was my children at the time, especially if you are navigating being by yourself, being a single mother, and trying to do it all. You will likely, it is okay to nowadays, now we have online church. It is okay to have online church with your children, or just create a Bible study. Doesn't even have to be a long, drawn out service. Let them see you worship. Let your children see you pray. Let them see you study, because that is what's really going to help your children, not you as you continue to go somewhere and serve. That is also very good, so they can learn how to give, but they also need to see how you process your emotions, um, how you keep, how you are with your children. I mean, that's something that you definitely need for you. So I just got a text message from one of my friends who, and I could have just definitely do not disturb at this point, but her son is not is in hospital. So I'm going to say, God, right now, in the name of Jesus, I pray that you lay hands and you send angels right now in the name of Jesus to touch and heal him and heal his body, calm the families, help them be in the room in the name of Jesus. I pray. Amen. So I had to do that very, very quickly. So, he would come and like get it together, y'all. Like, you know, um, that's interesting. I had another friend yesterday call me, and it's just been so you guys know that I'm not just on here teaching. This is something that I actually do in terms of encouraging and praying and helping women um, to really get through what they're going through because right now, y'all, times are, tough. And I understand that. And we are better together. But one of the things, again, I just want to talk about like that priority. Number one is making you the priority. I know it's difficult and sometimes to kind of unlearn some things, and it may feel like you're being selfish, but you have to make yourself a priority. Number two is identity. A lot of times I did talk about authenticity in terms of, learning the truth, learning about you, learning about how you feel, resetting. And again, when I talked about identity and we are talking about Jesus and how he knew himself, how he walked, everything was about his DNA. And so I'm going to say this: you are flawless. And so I want to give a couple of scriptures on. This is one of my favorite scriptures that I don't think people even know is here. Beyonce is not, is that the song? Is that the Beyonce song that talks about flawless? Right? I think it is. Help me with that. Help me, help me, help me. I think it's flawless. I think her song is flawless. If it's not, somebody has a song. Okay, all right. I'm gonna be like, I know somebody had a song. I'm trying to find my Song of Solomon. I think somebody took my Song of Solomon. Hold up. Nope, it's here. So one of the things I love this book. This is one of those books that I feel like it's like a love story, and it's an amazing story. And I really would want someone to talk to me about that. Y'all really need to like pray to get into this book. This is an amazing book. But one of the things that I liked is 4:7. I think it's 4:7. Hold up. My computer is my notes and everything. I believe it's 4:7. Hold up. No weather. I'm gonna find it. Hold up. I'm gonna have to make sure that I find something. I just want y'all to get the word. I'm sorry. I just like to get scripture. Um, I think it's 4:7, but is it 4:7? I think it's 4:7. But my Bible is not giving it to me the way I want it. Oh, y'all, don't laugh. I'm actually in Ecclesiastics. But you know what? I'm going to read this one. Because, God may want me to read this, but I'm going to read it too. This one is as Ecclesiastics 4:9. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them. So, part of that scripture that I was going to talk about is when you are having your parent. I think a lot of times we focus on the romantic connection in our marriages, and we want that to be it. But even my married friends, need, support, because women are different. We're going to handle things different. Men are different. Whether they're your husband, your brother, they're different. Um, they're just different. So when you have a family and some connection with a group of women that are similar to yourself, it just helps with the children. So one of the things that I know, that when you're going through a breakup or divorce, you will notice things. I know that I did. Most of my friends was with my husband or his friends, or connection to the family or the in-laws or whatever. And then it was family. Very rarely did I have other friends. Maybe I had friends outside and I was with maybe some people at church or anything. But when it came down to going out, I was more consumed with schoolwork. They had activities, and maybe I would connect with the parents sometimes, maybe, or maybe I would go and connect with who did my hair. She is still my friend today, my hairstylist and her family, and my kids connected with her. And I have a very good friend from work. So for the most part, the friends that we are not, because we're not being around, because again, school, you have more opportunities to connect with more people. Then the more you get away from school, somehow, we don't have anybody else more to connect with. So most of the time we're kind of isolated and having a busy life. And then the only person becomes your friend, your everything, is the significant other. And it's really not, we are more than just the romantic, and they should be your friends. And then, whatever didn't work out. But when you need a village, even if you were married, you still need some form of connection and with people. So I also had that point, and so vitally important that God wanted to give that right now in this second. So I like that. But I'm going to go over to identity. And because I am going to talk about mentality, but here, where is the Song of Solomon? I know I'm not going throw it off here. I could have sworn it's right. Wait a minute, y'all. Oh, there it is. I'm like, wait a minute. It's right after Ecclesiastes. Okay, look. All right. So 4:7. I really love this book. I mean, this chapter and this book. But in particular, this one says, "You are all together beautiful, my darling." And usually there's something, because I usually have in my head, my love. There is no flaw in you. There's absolutely no flaw in you. And so I think a lot of times we, because of so many different traumas or whatever we've gone through, even with maybe you didn't pick the right man and you're in a situation where you're at, maybe it was, and I know this, I did this often in my life where I slept with the guy. I slept with him before marriage, and I felt like this was my doom if I had not had sex with the guy. And I have heard many different comments to Black moms or single moms. If you had not slept with him, then maybe you wouldn't have a kid. Let me say this one. I'm gonna say this once too. Children are gifts. The conception that happens in your womb are gifts from God Himself. There are a lot of people that have sex. I believe the percentage, I can't get the percentage, but I know that there's this study, and nobody knows this absolute, because we don't know exactly how many people are having unprotected sex. And a guy that has full sperm and she has her ovaries and eggs. Any point that I'm making is that life does not come from just sex alone. Just because someone laid down and had sex with someone unprotected and there was a transmission of fluid between each other doesn't mean that that is going to be a baby and a child. So this whole conception of attacking women because, hey, you slept with them or whatever, that's just not it. The life is not determined by that. Because you can ask a lot of people that are continuing trying to have babies and they cannot have babies. So babies come from God himself. And if you have a child, that means that God can definitely help you. And one of the things that I love about um, the Bible, again, I'm going to always go to the Bible, is Hagar. And Hagar, if you guys remember, she had a baby and she was, at some point during the relationship, or maybe she thought she had a relationship, Sarah was like, look, she got to go. She, even though it was my idea that Abraham had the baby with her, she got to go. And so Abraham, so Sarah had to put her out and she is sent away. And I want to go to Genesis 21. And I want to say go to 17, Genesis 21:17. And I know that it's just a coach and everything, but this is really a principle. This is how you really get truth into you. I talked about the number 9 yesterday. That blew me away. That any number any 2-digit number. I don't know. I haven't seen if it happened with 3 digits, but 2-digit numbers added to each other to itself minus that total equals 9. So that is a very, very interesting. So 21:17 says, God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him to the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. I'm going to read that again. Like, he's crying, the baby's crying, and God called, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven. What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. I would say, even if the messiness that you could create, because this is a creation of messiness. We all know about the fact that, Sarah is thinking to herself, if you go back to Genesis 16, Sarah is talking to herself, negative self-talk. She's saying to herself, it must be my fault. God must have, cursed me and cursed my womb. And then she finds a solution for her husband. A lot of times people don't notice that of why Sarah did what she said. She actually said these things to herself. And how many times do we say things to ourselves that we just really should not say? And she had a limited belief. She did not wait on God. She was saying to myself, it's my fault. Because the chapter before that, Abraham had a fit. He's crying out to God and he's saying, hey, Jesus, not Jesus. Well, Jesus is God, but he's saying, hey, God, look, I'm doing everything for you. And all I got, you gave me everything. I'm rich and all of that. And the only person who's going to get my legacy is the slaves that I work with. And so the very next chapter, Sarah is saying to herself, this must be my fault. So because it's my fault, hey, Abraham, go ahead, sleep with this woman. She had to really, really be down on herself. And there are some times where we are like that with ourselves. And I really want to empower you women. I really want to empower you to understand that if you prioritize you, understand who you are, deal with the negative self-talk even about your identity. This definitely will help you. So God, I said all that to say, even in a mess, God will still take care of you. And even in this situation that you may find yourself in, I want to squash every negative thought that you could think of that, oh, I'm in this situation. It's my fault. These are my children. These are things that I thought of myself, and which why I was serving and serving and serving to the extent where I'm going to work 8 hours, and I was in law enforcement. I'm working with a regular car, a government vehicle. I take that government vehicle home, pick up my children, then we go to church. We're not even sitting down together at for dinner. And I'm not even catching a breath or not even understanding the value of the fact that God really does love me no matter what the situation is. And so I believe it's beautiful about Hagar's story on being a single mom. This is the first, I believe she's the first single mother that is mentioned in the Bible. Genesis is one of those great books that I've read fully all the way through. I think that's one of the books. But that book is really, really amazing. And I believe by this time, she is the first single mom that was completely blessed, and a nation. Okay. When God blesses you with a great nation. Okay. And so I really want to empower you so that when you are empowered, that will bleed over to your children. If you are going to therapy, not just focusing on them, because there might be some um, behavior challenges. They might, go through things that are, tough. But I tell people all this time that children are resilient. They're a lot more resilient and more wiser than we think. I recall when I was going through a divorce, I remember my young child, when I would come in, I would be crying, and she would come in and she would say things that I really, really needed to hear. And so most of the time is you that is the most fragile. I also tell my women that are actually, when you actually have babies, right after you have the baby is the most safe baby. I mean, they got to go to the doctor the next day. As soon as you leave the hospital, and you got to go back to the pediatrician so they can check the baby out and all of that. And everybody's focused on the baby, and the baby is cool. You're the most fragile. We are now seeing numbers are rising and percentages are rising for women that are giving birth. And unfortunately, they are passing away. You guys, this stuff is really, really deep. And it's like I talked about yesterday, anxiety going through the blood, going through the traumas going through your blood. And it is actually presenting symptoms of um, all of the like heart attacks, stroke. And it's a very real, because I don't want you to go to the doctor, because I've heard this too, I feel like it's insulting. I'm actually feeling pain in my body, but then the doctor is basically telling me, is it psychological? Are you going through therapy? Are you doing that? Like, it's not a disconnection. It is a real diagnosis. Like, I really did have breast cancer. That doesn't mean that it's all psychological. Psychological and the body actually works together. It's just the body has been broken down in cells, and it cannot fight back disease. It cannot fight back a diagnosis. But once you have a diagnosis, the plan should be, instead of you getting all this medication, which is excellent and good in certain cases, you should also have another plan on how to heal some un unresolved trauma or unresolved issues that you may not be aware of, because your mind, like I said on the first day, it actually it protects you. It goes into protective mode to survive. So it does these mechanisms to keep you what it believes is healthy for you. And I believe that's the power of the body. So that is the identity and authenticity. So I'm going to go back to my notes here. Drop it in the chat. Let me know if this has been good. This has been good. Hello, 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 everyone that is coming on and giving me hello, hello, hello. So I'm going to just go through a little bit of, I've dropped in the chat um, the website for you to sign up. And I am trying to reset. So that's why I'm sitting here. I'm trying to give y'all some good works. If everything's going good, everything's going great, guys, let me know. Okay, I'm going through this one, this one, this one. Okay. So when we go through authenticity and learning your truth, um, I also want you to figure out what are some things that you want to learn about you. Who are you? I know a lot of times we talk about purpose. Purpose evolves. Um, at one point, I have a purpose, and maybe it's my career at the time that I am, seeking or something that I'm doing. So that's necessary to get you to the next step. So whatever you're doing right now is likely connected to your purpose. Yes, 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 yes. I see you. I see you. Yes. Okay, what is this about? Okay, I'm sorry. So again, I am Tanisha Manning. Let me start off. I'm in my whole mind. So I am Tanisha Manning. I am the founder of Confident Women's Alliance. And what we do, we help women, divorced moms who are suffering from allergies, asthma, breathing issues, to get to sleeping and having energy to do whatever they love to do. I also work through working through my program on like 90 days, 12 weeks of whether it's your diet, whether you want to lose weight, um, get to more of an emotional connection. What I do is I focus because I have been a breast cancer survivor. The latest is stage 4. And what I have learned is that childhood trauma and loneliness, one of the things that I'm talking about, divorce, is something that is a traumatic event. I did not know how much trauma is connected to the body and how it breaks down the cells, your natural killing cells in your body, to kill off whatever is foreign in your body. So cancer itself is pretty much um, your own cells attacking you. Thank you. And so, what I do is I pretty much help and create a plan specifically for you. Some details. So, that's kind of like, in a nutshell, a little bit of a 5-second kind of view of what I do. Um, in that program. And if you want to work with me longer, then I have a process for that as well. So thank you guys. And I also, let me know what, am I hitting some points? Like, are you at ground zero? Are you starting out with a little bit of assistance? Are you, at your peak of wherever you are? Let me know exactly where it is. And if this has been helpful, please let me know as well. And so today, what I'm talking about is co-parenting. So pain-free co-parenting, because this started for me. I fought breast cancer twice. So at the beginning of, I don't know, maybe 6 years apart, that's when I actually was initially diagnosed at 34. And then 6 years later at 40, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So one of the things that I have learned is, wait a minute, where the heck does this cancer come from? Because the myth out here is that really they screen you for it at 50, or they say they should. Now they brought it down to 40. But majority of the time, majority of my friends and people that I have connected with in the community of those that have survived, you're under 40. And so I was under 40 at the time. And I'm like, God, where is this and why? And then he led me and taught me about his emotions, which is why I teach a lot about connecting and understanding that your emotional health, emotions are not just the option to feel. I've heard even this week when I was with one of my pastors that basically explained about culture, and he was just like, well, we don't want you to, what your feelings say. What does God say? And I'm like, you really can't separate that. Your soul also embodies your emotions, and you are made in God's image, and He is an emotional God. He is angry, he gets jealous, and a lot of times people will associate those emotions and say those are God emotions against sin. Well, if you read the body and you get studied, there are certain instances in which he gets angry, like he gets upset at people that are taking advantage of children. He gets upset when people are abused, when women are being abused, or when the culture has done, like, he doesn't like some of the similar things that we don't like. He also gets jealous. We also get jealous. And so a lot of times we just suppress all of these things because we want to get accepted. If we are really honest about them, most of it is pretty much being accepted by people that are in our families, or for work, or whatever the case may be. And so that's what I teach about, like, not, these things are harmful to your health. And particularly today, we're talking about the transition from helping your kids adjust to divorce. And one of the things that I talked about, just an overview of the fact that, hey, prioritize identity and mentality. And prioritize, I mean prioritizing you, because your children will follow you. They will mimic whatever you do. And I said that this is actually hard, which is one of the reasons why I have a coaching program, because you really have to unlearn, relearn, and learn how to do that. I talked about the analogy of the fact that we are on the plane, and I'm going to continue to say this. You will be on the plane, and they tell you, if those of us that have, flown, and you have a flight attendant, and she's saying, hey, the cabin pressure is coming down, put the mask on you first before you put the mask on your child. Well, if you put it, we're not naturally going to put the mask on us. We're going to put the mask on the baby. It is just so ingrained in us to do that. And so I teach about that and pretty much coach you to understand that it is okay to put yourself first. It is okay to prioritize you, so that your children will be able to get through it. And I know another thing is that we will go through counseling. We will send our children through counseling and therapy, and then we won't go because we'll be so busy with trying to make sure that they're not acting out, and we'll be so caring of them, but we will not do it. And I'm telling you that the transition is to really pay attention to you, what works for you, because they will mimic and they will follow you. They're like, I won't say they're like sponges, but they are, depending on the age of the children and what happens, and then knowing that it's traumatic for them as well. I also want to go over, I'm going to be pretty quick. We've gone late today a little bit, but I know that about identity, there's two things that my coach talks about: lie identity, and my identity. And most times we are living in a lie identity when we believe what other people have said about us. And then my identity is like, well, we're actually proving to others who we are, when to whatever they said about you. And identity is just being who you are no matter what other people say, and it's not in your background, which is what I was talking about with Jesus and him being the way, and he didn't care about the religious people that were basically saying that's blasphemy, you're going to be killed. He just knew exactly how he was. And I talked about being flawless, and that you are truly flawless, and freedom. And a part of freedom, which is a promise that you have right now, we have the promise to be free. And if you're not free, there is a place where you're not, there's truth that is not there, basically. And so your mentality and your mental health. And I talked a lot about that. So I also want to end with this. I want to also give you a different word as well. You are fathomless. And what do I mean by fathomless? Fathomless is it is something that you are that is beyond your wildest dreams. Let me tell you something. Jesus said that when I go and be with the Father, you will do greater things than the things that he did. That's something when he was here, he laid hands on the sick and they recovered instantly. When he was here, he cast out devils, and that happened before others. We are to take power and subdue the earth. And your children need to see you subdue. Your children need to subdue. And the way to do that is that I really want to empower you to understand that that is what helps your children to get past and not just this trauma and heal through it. It's it gives them the endurance of what is there to come. And so also what I really want in terms of my program and teaching is that your health is your wealth. And I know this very, very real. You can have, I don't know, millions of dollars in your account. You can be very well off. As soon as there's a health challenge in your life that is very, 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 very expensive. One treatment for chemo is like $300,000 a month. And I was getting shots. I did not do chemo this fourth. I did not, I chose not to do the IV chemo. I said, heck no, I'm not doing that. But um, because I just that's my body. I didn't want to do that, but and I'll go into that a little later if you guys want to know how I went through my treatments and what I did. I will definitely go into that. But my point is, we we have to take control over our health, over our lives, and understanding that we are to be the leader in you in being over health. We ought to shine where we should see people coming for us and wanting to know Jesus because of how we live and the deliverance that we can not only exemplify on ourselves, but exemplify as we lay hands and teach and be who we are. So this is important. Why I want to talk about the transition when you have children is that yes, what you went through, I am not going to minimize that. It is definitely traumatic. We have to get through it, but your children will watch you. So pay attention to you, prioritize you, know your identity, and change your mentality. That is today. Are there any questions about program, anything that I've covered tonight? I don't know if anyone is still here. Everyone is still. Everybody's here. All right. Well, that is all, and we will see you tomorrow, same time, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. All right. Bye bye.